Finally, Newt Gingrich's campaign has released another ad attacking Romney.
I'm Newt Gingrich, and I approve this message.
Who wouldn't approve that message, I ask you? Congressman, welcome to the show, and God help you.
No.
Do you agree with Senator McCain that whoever wins South Carolina will be the nominee?
No, whoever has the puppy ad wins.
So Newt wins?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I actually disagree with my own senator. But remember, I come from the school of thought. I want this to be a long, dragged out. I want them to fight. It'll make them better candidates.
Right.
It toughens them up, makes them better on the stump, and it keeps the bad guys from knowing who our nominee is, who they get to start attacking.
But don't you think that sort of plays into Obama's favor? Like, they beat each other up, and Obama's giving them something on a silver platter. I mean, his numbers are so low, right? I mean, the only numbers lower than that are the number of relationships that Andy's been in that are meaningful. And
you could have just said relationships.
Yeah. Also, Paul, in the future, please don't answer unless I've asked you an actual question.
Okay, but no, my reason in this is very simple. Think back 3-some years ago. Is it Barack? Is it Hillary? Is it Hillary? Is it Barack? It gobbled up all the media attention in this country for months. Well, darn it, it's our turn to do the same thing.
Well, I agree. I said last night on the show, people keep saying the Republicans it's not good that they're beating each other up. And my point is always, well, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama did that 3 years ago. They beat the hell out of each other, and President Obama won.
Yeah, it's absolute folklore that tough primaries lose the general.
Yeah.
Tough primaries toughen up the candidates.
Yep. Do you think Governor Romney wins South Carolina?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, you have to look at the direction of the tracking polls and who's still persuadable. I'm not sure there's enough persuadable votes yet. But, you know, South Carolina really will make a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I think so. Diane, you're a big Santorum gal. Do you think he finishes strong in South Carolina?
You just completely made that up.
Did I not get that right?
But sure, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
So, is he going to do well in South Carolina?
I don't know.
Sexual tension.
Okay. Well, make something up. Pretend you're on a TV show and you have to give an answer.
He is actually neck and neck with Gingrich right now for second, which was kind of unexpected. So, you know, I have a hard time trusting polls, though, because, you know, 3 months ago everyone was saying that Gingrich was completely out of the race, and no one thought he was actually running seriously. Now he's contending for second in most of these races. So, you know, I have a hard time trusting these polls. But right now, obviously, Romney has momentum. I think if he wins all three, it'll be really hard to take him out.
I agree with you. Paul, what about...
Oh, you have a question for me? Go ahead.
Sadly, I do.
Go on.
What about Ron Paul? How's he going to do in New Hampshire and South Carolina?
It doesn't make a difference. It's going to be Romney. None of these candidates have a chance.
That's why I'm using the throwaway question for you.
Exactly. These other candidates have no... I mean, they have the same chance as a black contestant on The Bachelor. They have no chance at all. All right? And that wasn't racist. And
I think it might have been.
No, I don't think so.
He has the facts to
Why
back
am I
him up.
watching my political
Don't
career
look down.
die?
Just condemning.
I'm the only one on
Condemn
this
it.
panel that feels the opposite. I don't think beating each other up in these primaries for months and months and months helps the candidate. I think they're already pretty powerful people who can handle themselves, and I think Barack Obama is giving them a silver platter to beat him, and they're not taking it. You know, it's like you've got the game won, you can take a knee, you know, in the football game, and instead you turn around and you punch your own quarterback.
Okay, but here's another reason why I disagree with you. We saw there were a tremendous number of debates before the first votes were even cast this time, more than we usually see in these election years. And I thought by the end of those debates, every single candidate was so much better than they had been at the beginning of the debates. And I just think the more you keep doing this stuff, the better they get, the more they get attacked, the better they get at repelling
I think to an
attacks.
extent, but I think for me it's degrees. Like, I don't think you need so much. I think at some point the Republican Party needs to go, you know what, we should turn our attention and our cannons to this. And you talk about Clinton and Obama. Well, the Republicans didn't win, so that strategy that you're talking about isn't helping. Obama won. You're saying they beat each other up,
and then they still won.
Well, they still won.
But
The other part to keep in mind, though.
The point I'm trying to head towards is we're dominating the media. The media is finally paying attention to Republican candidates.
Right.
And typically, the president has the absolute bully pulpit and controls all media.
Right.
In this case, our primary is getting paid attention to.
But do you really think Republican voters out there didn't know that these other candidates existed and what they stood for without like this onslaught of media attention?
We have to move beyond our traditional Republican base. And as we get more and more media, more and more attention, and more discussion, you start to reach into that independent population that is absolutely necessary to win
But
this
it's
election.
hard to trigger that independent population during the primaries when the goal is to trigger the base.
Yeah, but if
once
they-
you get into the general election, then everyone's trying to go after that independent sector.
Right.
But right now, what they're trying to highlight and pick each other apart for are things that kind of alienate the independent base. So I see Paul's point, and I think a major difference between this election versus the last one is that both sides were doing the same thing. In this case, we have an incumbent in office, so he's not going through that same battle that these other candidates are.
Can I take issue with something you said? I
No.
well, I'm going to.
You understand,
what we're
you
talking
understand
about
I'm
now.
hosting
Back
tonight.
to you.
Huh?
I'm hosting tonight.
But I felt like no one interjected on a point that you made
Okay.
that I thought was valid. I thought you were right. That the more the Republicans debate, the better they are getting, and you can see that. What you did not take into account is the viewers. Now, after the 57th debate, halfway through, when I heard the same question, the same regurgitated answer, I had a stroke, and my stroke ended up being more pleasurable than the rest of that debate. So think about the viewers.
And yet, the ratings for that last
Yeah,
debate
went up.
were sky high.
Maybe because I'd left this mortal coil for a little bit.
Well, Bill, but the point is, I think you were saying earlier that South Carolina so far has raised more questions than it's answered. I distinctly remember you saying that. Yeah.
In the green room.
What did you mean by that, though?
I just meant overall, I feel like people in markets, maybe they're not even talking about the day, they're just asking questions. How are you doing? What's going on? Why are you buying that bread? And when you think about all the questions that are going on in South Carolina and all the media picking them up, that's a lot more questions that can be answered in one
That's an
sitting.
excellent point, though.
Thank you. That's going to be edited out.
Is
isn't
that
it?
an excellent
It's
point?
really,
I'm
it's
trying to
really
figure
not.
out
It's
the
really
loaf
not.
of bread analogy.
It made no sense. It's like
The
when you
thing
talk,
is, it wasn't an analogy. He was literally talking
Look,
about
I'm a
somebody
stroke
else.
victim.
You're really dealing with children here to your
Congressman,
left.
it's like when you
I
reward.
mean, it's like dealing with fellow members of Congress.
Yes,
It's like
that
when
was a
when you
billabuster.
reward a dog for not going to the bathroom in the house. That was what I just did there.
You don't chase them around with a rolled up newspaper?
No.
Have you seen the green room? You should not be rewarding me right
This is
now.
the carrot. Congressman, does John Huntsman drop out after New Hampshire? He's currently polling third or fourth there. He's not going to be much of a factor.
Okay, my mean moment of the evening. John who?
Oh.
That's your main moment of the evening. Wow.
Well, you've already blown it. Now you can't be mean
Yeah.
for the rest of the evening.
Am I allowed to speak?
No. Diane. PPP says African Americans, Tea Party supporters, and young people are the three most motivated demographic groups going into this election cycle. Explain why they're wrong.
Who said they were wrong?
I don't know.
You just wanted me to
Yes. Okay, explain
just
why they're
talk
right.
about randomly
Explain
why
why they're
you're
right.
right or wrong.
Yes.
No, I think it's understandable why those three would be most motivated, but it's a matter of if they're actually going to get up and go to the polls, which I think the Tea Partiers are more likely to actually do that than the other demographics that they're talking about. Young people don't generally go out and vote.
Right.
And so, it's kind of, it's a tough call. A lot of times these polls, in this case they did talk to voters, but most of the polls out there, they just talk to general people. And then they go out and talk about what their opinions are. It doesn't really matter. If they're not actual voters and they're not going to the polls, their opinions don't really matter.
Yeah. So, Paul, what about you? Do you think the young people are going to get out and vote?
I think they're going to. I don't think they get out to vote as much as the older demographic, and so I think that what the Republicans should do is to keep the young people inside at all costs. So instead of buying ads, they should sponsor Teen Mom marathons, and I think that'll keep the young people in. I also think
Maybe
that
buy them video games.
Yeah, exactly. I think Obama. I think that was sarcastic, by the way. I think that Obama, is energized by this Republican sort of, bashing. And I think after every debate, he should pop his head up and go, "I approve this message," because I really think it's ultimately helping him. But yeah, I mean, I didn't find that poll to be all that earth-shattering that African Americans are going to come out. And they're going to go for Obama, obviously, because he's African American. I don't know what that poll tells you other than sort of...
I think the point of the poll was that as much as the Tea Partiers and sort of the Republican base may be motivated, that President Obama's base is equally motivated going into this election.
Yeah, and because there's no one on that side sort of challenging him right now. That one might but that speaks to what the congressman said, which I sort of disagree with. Like, he's got a motivated base without having 57 debates and 4 people screaming at him that he's incompetent.
Yeah.
So
Look, when you're running against a campaign, it's probably going to drop $1 billion.
I can't believe you're in Congress. What are you talking about? No, I'm
I
just
also
kidding.
think
I'm kidding.
the economic crisis does impact that, because for the first time things that are going on in politics that normally don't interest younger people, it's directly affecting them because they're coming out of colleges and not able to get jobs.
Well, that's
or
a good
going
point.
to
Do
colleges,
you
not
think
able to
the
get
Occupy
jobs. So I
Wall Street
think-
movement is going to help motivate people to be more interested in politics? It might.
No, I don't.
No.
I think it does. I think it does motivate that base, and I think particularly for youth, this is the first time that they are seeing direct consequences of policies that are being passed. So I think it is a motivating factor.
Congressman, last word to
I've
you.
actually seen crosstabs about young people, and the young people are not maniacally for the president anymore.
Oh, I'm not saying that they
when
are, but in
when
terms of whether or
if
not
you're
they're
a young person
motivated.
with what's happened to your job situation,
Yeah.
your future, the amount of debt that's been piled up on top of you, I really do believe young people, and I've seen it in some data, are very prepared to vote for the Republican. And the Occupy Wall Street is a wonderful thing. Because think about it. Here, you saw 2 years of Tea Party folks getting beaten up. Now you get to meet the Occupy. Okay, one considers bathing optional. Who do you want as your next door neighbor? The Tea Party folks or the Occupy folks?
You're hitting a little close to home here, all right? I'm an excellent neighbor.
I agree with you. Bathing is highly overrated.
All right, we're going to move on from politics to Pall Malls. Should employers screen for nicotine? Well, an increasing number, mostly hospitals, are refusing to hire smokers or applicants whose urine test positive for nicotine in general. For instance, this month, a nic-free policy went into effect at Baylor Healthcare System in Texas. And according to USA, other examples across the country abound. That's right, they abound. Says a rep from a like-minded medical facility in Pennsylvania, quote, "We're trying to promote a complete culture of wellness. We're not denying smokers their right to tobacco products. We're just choosing not to hire them." Critics say it's discrimination and sets a bad precedent, with one radio host / smoker saying, quote, "What's next? Are you not going to hire overly caffeinated people?" Slippery slope? More like slippery trope. Isn't that right, Flavor Country Kitten?
Daj po kolei, polityku.
Just like to point out that no cats actually smoked in the creation of that video.
You're right, that was an e-cig.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Diane, is this an infringement on individual rights, or is it okay if private employees want to discriminate against smokers?
I mean, they are private companies, and I don't think smokers qualify as a protected class, but I do think it's ridiculous. You know, smokers do cost more in terms of health care. They also take a break, you know, a 5-minute break every hour. I think it's totally fine for a company to say you can't smoke on the premises. You want to smoke, do it on your lunch hour, but you're not leaving the office every 5 minutes or, you know, 5 minutes
But
every
that's not
hour.
what they're saying. They're saying if you smoke at all, we're not hiring.
And yeah, I don't agree with that. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. I think it's going too far. If you have to give someone a urine test in order to know whether or not they're a smoker, then clearly it's not actually affecting their work, or
Right.
you wouldn't have to give them
That's a
that
good point.
test. But I also don't agree with the government stepping in because I don't think smokers qualify as a protected class. So
Well,
I'm a little
Congressman,
divided on this one.
Congressman, let me ask you, which gets to a point Diane said about the increased health care costs. But if employers can decide not to hire smokers because of that, can they also decide not to hire overweight people or people who have diseases? Isn't that the same logic?
If it's a genetic or disease, you probably do fall into a protected class. But if someone's chosen to smoke and it has an additional, $3,000 in insurance cost, and you're a private business, why shouldn't the private business be able to make that decision? You know, if you work at a private business and you have to now cover the additional costs.
Why not just charge them more for their health care?
And
Why
that-
just
and that's a
decide not to
perfectly-
hire them entirely?
And that's a perfectly legitimate alternative. So if that hospital, which is a private business, has trouble finding employees, maybe that's what they'll have to do, is saying you can come to work, but you have to pay this additional. But it's a private business. Private
I
business
agree.
gets to choose who it employs.
But can they do the same thing with overweight people who might be more prone to diseases or more
Yes.
prone to injury and higher health care costs in general? Can they do
Yeah,
that?
you probably are. You're in that slippery slope. But the fact of the matter is, if it's a private business, it's not a government,
Right.
and it's not a protected class.
You're going to have to then start to argue that that fine line is the person overweight because of genetics or because
Yeah,
of an addiction
exactly.
to food or whatever.
But you could argue that about cigarettes. If you're genetically prone, if you have an addictive personality, or genetically,
Our comedian.
I mean, it doesn't pass the smell
Exactly.
test. I mean, it's technically that they have the right to do, but it just doesn't feel right. Instead
Agreed.
of let people, I mean, if you want to really rectify and control these people's behavior, just put an office mate next to them in a cubicle with a tracheotomy, and I think that'll fix the guy's smoking problem.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the problem is we got to stop making decisions by feelings and do it by facts.
Well, but the
And-
problem is the facts here are kind of blurry because then where do you draw the
Well,
line?
but
You
no-
made a joke about over-caffeinated people, but
Right.
but that person had a point. You know, where do you draw the line? Oh, you can't eat certain foods or we won't hire you. You can't drink certain coffee, we won't hire you.
Take it to the next thing. You have an evangelical religious shop, and are you obligated to hire the atheist? I mean, at what point as you as a private employer, should you be able to make those decisions a private employer
But I don't
makes?
understand this, but from your perspective in your party, it's sort of all about sort of individual rights and freedom. And doesn't a person have a right to smoke and not be infringed upon?
No,
so there's sort of a,
here's
there's
what you're
one
wrong.
rubs
You
against the
absolutely
other.
have that individual right to smoke.
Do you smoke?
But
But if you lost your job because you smoke,
but
you
with
feel the same way?
that comes
You
the
can work somewhere
consequences
else.
of
But
the
Paul,
you can work
decision.
somewhere else
But
in this
Paul,
economy.
Paul, the
but you're
point is
missing
a company, a private company, also has the right to discriminate against you. They have the right. A company has the right to say, we can't stop you from smoking. It's totally legal,
Right.
but we're not going to hire you.
Right.
Well, when do you get to live in a world where you have the consequences of your decisions?
Well, I think that that person's living with the consequences in terms of long-term health care problems.
But how about the additional $3,000 you cost that company in your health care,
I think it's a
and your
but-
fellow employees are having to cover that
I want
cost?
to go to Bill before we have to go to break. So say something.
The problem here is Dr. Smoke. And as last I checked, brain surgeons and heart surgeons, they're not having any trouble finding jobs. They're going to get crap doctors for this. Go to a hospital parking lot. You'll see what I'm talking about.
All right.
Point.
Yep. Coming up, Colorado high school students submitted a photo, seen here, for the end-of-the-year almanac, but priggish administrators refused to publish it because her attire violated the dress code, which requires tops to, quote, fully cover the chest, back, abdomen, and sides of the student. So Sydney Spees is protesting the school or something. Says the 18-year-old, quote, I feel like they aren't allowing me to have my freedom of expression. I don't want this to happen to other people. She argues that until Durango High creates a formal policy about yearbook shots, it can't censor her sexiness. Still, the racy photo has raised some eyebrows. He's always judging. He's like the Newt Gingrich of dogs. Yeah. Diane, was the school wrong to insist that the yearbook photo has to meet the same dress code that the school has for students during the day?
No, absolutely not. You know, this is one of the things that's wrong with the world. People protest the dumbest things. It's an insult to real protesters. It should be common sense that if the school has a dress policy in the hallways, if you can't look like a whore in the hallways, you can't look like a whore in the yearbook. That's what Facebook is for.
Hey. What the hell? We prefer sexually empowered. Whore means a negative thing. You go, girl.
Exactly. What do you
go.
broads know?
Congressman, is the school violating Sydney's free speech, or is Sydney violating the school's something?
Look, the only thing in this story I'm ultimately concerned with, I want to go back 30 years ago, find the person who told me to wear the powder blue tuxedo for my yearbook shot, and beat the crap out of it.
It'll come back. It'll come
You
back.
wish you'd been wearing a tube top and a yellow skirt.
Yeah, I mean, but in whose world was a powder blue tuxedo the in thing to wear?
But it was the in thing to wear.
What happened that night?
Can't talk about it.
Hey, I'm getting me a blue tuxedo.
You have a blue tuxedo.
I do have a blue
believe.
tuxedo.
Paul, was the picture a little inappropriate?
Yes, and I want to see more of them. PaulMercurio.com. Look, I think it's
Got an email
ironic.
address.
I think it's ironic that this girl can't get her picture in a sexy student yearbook, but she can easily get on sexystudent.com. I mean, is this really the worst thing that's happening in the world, that picture is in a yearbook? Has anybody seen a picture that's not as bad, at least equal to that on
The
Facebook
school
or
is
Twitter?
paying for the yearbook. They're
What
not paying
difference-
for sexystudent.com.
What difference does it make? I want to see her prom picture when we get her 3-month ultrasound. That's what I want to see.
That doesn't happen in rural Colorado, sir.
Bill, now that we've exposed this story to the light of day, or the dark of 3 a.m., will the school cave?
No, it won't cave. Who's the loser in this? The school wins because it gets to flex its socially conservative muscles in front of concerned PTA members. This girl wins completely. Instead of getting the picture shown in her yearbook, she's going to show to the entire country. Right. Her sexy ego has never been sexier. The only real loser in this entire story is me, because not one journalist asked if she was single. The one question they should have asked, they didn't do it.
But he makes a good point. She's getting what she wants on some level.
Absolutely.
We're talking about it on national television.
Absolutely.
Albeit at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Everyone wins.
And I've got a letter writing campaign to get them back in the.
You don't know how to write letters, nor are you a man of letters.
The only real losers, the viewers on this one.
And he's taking off.
Thank you, Andy. We've gotten a ton of viewer email here, mostly about you, and it's all wanting to know if you followed through on your New Year's resolution to sell all your cats and become a dog person.
I did not.
You did not.
Nope.
So you've dropped that entirely.
My resolutions were dead by like 12:06.
Well, thank God you didn't follow through on that one. And by the way, I also want to tell you that I was just talking to my mother. God bless her. She's almost 93 years old. And I told her I was going to be doing this show this evening and subbing for you. And she looked at me, as a 93-year-old person does, and she kind of cocked her head. And she said, Andy? Andy, she said, is that the young man who always talks to Gutsman and complains all the time and never smiles? That's but she's a fan. Otherwise, she's a fan. See, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's what she's talking about.
Thanks, Mrs. Baker.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I think the senior citizens of this country want you to lighten up a little bit.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen?
No.
Okay. All right, let's get right to the halftime report, shall we? Halftime grades. Well, let's see how we're doing. Frankly, it looks like Paul is at the top of the class this evening, and primarily because I'm agreeing with just about everything he's saying this evening. Sir. The congressman, I gave you a pass because I was told by our research staff down here in America's Newsroom that Congress is graded on a pass-fail system.
Pretty much. Be nice. Your mom's one of my constituents.
That's very true, and thank you for disclosing the secret location of my mother. So. Pay no attention to what the congressman said.
Mike, it could be any house on Harmony Street.
Definitely not the one with the pink flamingo out front.
Anyway, we had a section for the bell curve, but I honestly couldn't remember what the bell curve is. Let's go straight to 2012's first Daily Sprockets report. This is very exciting because our research team has put together what we like to call a bubble graph. And if you haven't seen one of these before, it's technical, so perhaps we can have Bill explain it later on in the show. But it's based on a logarithmic function, the Fenster gap going through the roof, according to tonight's charts. So that's very, very good news, and I think we have our fans to thank for that, frankly. We've also been asked by News Corp to break out the Wanker span numbers from now on, rather than including them on the Fenster gap chart. So when I think really what you need to do here is the important point is to follow the wank line on this chart. You'll see the wank line pretty much peaking right during halftime, and that's it. And then EBITDA numbers are looking pretty good for the first quarter.
That's fantastic, Mike.
Yeah, this. Look at that. That's my Twitter address, isn't it? Yeah.
I guess
anyway.
we must have done an amazing job, guys.
Yeah, you guys have done a great job. Let's go to story number one, shall we? Straight off, story number one. Congressman, you mentioned that you think actually this whole debate and this campaign and this slugfest is good because you said that you actually think it toughens them up to be able to beat the crap out of each other. Do you think there might also be a negative impact on that?
Oh, there's probably a negative, but you've missed the other part of that, and that is it builds the horse race. It gets people to watch and pay attention.
Okay, yeah. But, I mean, I suppose at some point, this is where I go back to agreeing with Paul.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, no, believe me. Yeah.
I have a law degree.
Do you think, and I throw this out to both of you, thank God, look at that double screen right there.
Gorgeous.
Do you think that there's a chance
Hey,
that because you having this beat 'em up festival, and the idea that perhaps it makes them better at what they do, it toughens them up, and it creates a stronger candidate, does it also, in a sense, if you're trying to widen the audience, if you're trying to be more inclusive, bring all those voters in, isn't there a chance that all this beating up also tends to make them more polarizing and they get more narrow in their views?
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if that was directed to me or to the congressman.
To both of you.
Well, I mean, look at Herman Cain. Everybody was loving Herman Cain. He was in the lead, and that process that the congressman thinks is great drove him out of the race. Now, let me finish. A lot of people would argue that that guy should still be in the race.
No, the point is that you don't want that stuff.
Why do you change the facts when the argument doesn't go your way?
Paul, be quiet. The point is, you don't want that guy being the nominee and that stuff coming out in the general election when it's too late. You want it to come out now before you nominate someone.
But your arguments are working against each other.
But they're really not. They're working against you.
Also, the race is
can I just point out
vetting
something?
process.
Right.
Congressman, if I may just interrupt here and just point out, because I know this is your first time on the show, but this is the halftime report with Mike Baker.
Okay, Mr. Baker, and I'll say hi to Mom.
Let's switch over to Diane. Diane, in all honesty, Diane, you really don't care about the GOP race, do you?
Well, I just wasn't prepared to talk about Santorum, that's all.
Yeah. Well,
It's kind of like baseball, you know. You don't watch in the beginning of the season. You watch towards the end of the summer, the beginning of the playoffs, because that's when it gets interesting.
yeah. Do you think this? I mean, at this point, I mean, is it fair to say? I mean, where do you stand on this? Do you think that, everyone's going to fall on their principled sword at this point, and we're missing an opportunity to rally behind, the one candidate who might actually win?
Well, but the whole point is to figure out who that candidate's going to be, to figure out who you want to rally behind. So that's what people are doing. But when you live in New York, you know exactly which way the polls are going to go, and by the time we get here, it's already been decided. So,
Yeah.
I'll just wait until the playoffs.
Hence the blue state dress.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, Congressman, you mentioned that we have to move beyond our traditional Republican base, and this is purely asking for your opinion. Given that, which of the candidates do you think has the best chance of appealing to a broader base?
Well, but there was something that I've seen in the numbers. When you have Ron Paul in the race, Ron Paul is doing incredibly well with young people, and a lot of young people had actually voted for Obama 4 years ago. But the reality of it is we do see some numbers where Mitt seems to make a lot of independents comfortable. So if you're one of the other challengers to Mitt, you got to be able to tell that story of why you can draw them in.
Right.
That's the whole process, though.
Okay. No, understood. Bill, and we're going to go to Bill because he's our youth correspondent. How does the GOP attract more young voters?
Well, first of all, you might want to start taking John Huntsman seriously, because right now nobody is. He get his daughters out front and, get them more involved with Twitter and whatnot. Now, if Obama wants to hold on to these kids, outdoor basketball court out in the front yard of the White House. He's got to do Follow Fridays on his Twitter account, and it's got to be all hip-hop stars, and he's got to end every sentence with the word son. And that's how he will hold on to the youth.
And,
So
super sexy yearbook photos.
Yes.
Let's switch over to the PPP story, because that's certainly an unbiased polling operation, isn't it? Diane, we talked about this, and you said it's no surprise that the blacks, the youth, and the Tea Party are the most motivated. That leads to the question: is there such a thing as a young black Tea Partier?
I'm sure there are, sure.
I think I know that guy.
You just don't want to commit to anything this evening, do you, Diane? And I respect that.
I just said I'm sure there are.
No. Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
All two of our show.
What's your favorite episode of Teen Mom?
One where his face is blurred out.
One where my face is blurred out. Oh, I hate all of you.
And finally, Diane wins for the line of the night. If you can't look like a hoe in the hallways, you can't look like a hoe in the yearbook. And isn't that the truth?
No, that's wrong. That's wrong.
What you call yourself,
man,
dude?
Old man, that's wrong.
By the way, Congressman, I got 2 more points, and then I'll go because they're chasing me out of here. Congressman, I just want to let you know that for my high school prom, I wore a powder blue tuxedo with a ruffled shirt with dark blue fringe.
Yeah.
Are you still embarrassed about it, though, like I am?
I still own it. I'm not embarrassed by it. I wore it on New Year's Eve.
A quick question. What's Teen Mom?
That's
Paul will show you later.
Okay, yeah.
I
He's
have it on
probably
my
got it
iPhone.
on his iPad.
Yeah.
Paul, finally, you didn't seem to have any problems with the sexy yearbook issue.
no.
What if it was your daughter?
Then she would be shipped off to another country to make shoes.
That's how you teach them.
That's how you teach them.
Fantastic.
It's the only way they're gonna learn.
Seriously,
I consulted
I
with you
admit
while
to-
I was raising my daughter.
I admit to a double standard, but it's not my daughter, and she wants her 5 minutes of fame. She gets it.
No, I think she got it. Andy, that's it. I'm done.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We got to go. Oh, we do still have more time. All right. Coming up, should senior citizens be drinking Red Bull? Oh, hell no, comes to mind. Is your lawmaker a heartbreaker? If so, then chances are he or she is getting more TV time. Yes, according to a new study, better-looking members of Congress get more coverage on television, and the researchers say it's because the networks are trying to draw larger audiences. Oh, stop the presses, they may be onto something. The study also found that the most attractive legislators were disproportionately Republican, senators, and women. So who's comely on Capitol Hill? The top 3 are Representative Marsha Blackburn, former Representative Stephanie Herseth Sandlin, and Senator Saxby Chambliss. Hello, Saxby.
What's up?
Yeah, clearly we must discuss this in the...
Lightning round. Lightning round.
Congressman, you weren't eligible for this survey because it used a list from 2007. If you had been eligible, would you have been in the top 5?
No, it would explain why I'm rarely on prime time.
How about that Saxby Chambliss, though?
Yeah, you got it. And I haven't seen him at the gym.
Yeah, where is he? It's just sometimes it's just natural.
Good genes, Saxby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it could be juicing.
You got to get in there, Congressman. Just do a little nipple
scandal.
slip. Just do a little nipple slip.
Yeah. Paul, do you see anything wrong with the networks putting the most attractive Congress? Will anthills become the size of windmills? According to the latest edition of Science, a couple of eggheads at some university in Canada claim they now have the ability to create super soldier ants with huge heads and giant jaws, kind of like Newt Gingrich, at will by doing nothing more than adding a hormone to a normal soldier's larvae. Larvae is a breakfast cereal, right? The authors of this awfulness claim, quote, we uncovered an ancestral development potential to produce a novel super soldier subcaste that has been retained throughout a hyperdiverse ant genus that evolved 35 to 60 million years ago. Shut up, nerds. But will the monster ants turn into a graveyard smash for humanity? Yeah, have you seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes? And more importantly, must all genetic hybrids be terrifying? Well, that answered nothing.
Everything.
All right.
Find these things.
We have a full-time staff that does nothing but find these things. Paul, this is the beginning of the end of the world, right?
No, listen, I think that with all the diseases in the world and the know-how that we have, that we're using our resources to make bigger ants. That says everything right there. Go, USA.
Yeah.
You know?
I think this was Canada, but that's okay. Congressman, on a scale of 1 to a second term for Obama, how much does this terrify you?
Oh, God, what an interesting scale. Now, this was done through apparently hormones, but
Yes.
I actually have real ethical questions about gene slicing and, creating at least a set of rules that it's done by so we do it both ethically and safely.
Right.
So there's actually something serious here.
See, I'm opposed to doing anything ethically or safely, but that's just me, I guess.
It's better for comedy. You're doing it the other
Absolutely,
way.
yeah.
Not good for humanity.
Probably why I'm a libertarian and not a Republican.
Yeah.
Don't let the giant ants hear about that.
Yeah. Diane, are you excited for the practical applications of what these biologists are doing? And I have no idea what those are.
I kept reading through the article to wait for the part where they talk about, and this is important because,
Right.
and it just
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. That's why we're
that
doing
was
this
it. They
story.
were like, and yay! So,
Yeah.
see, there it is.
Bill, you may only comment if you promise not to bring up your cloning woolly mammoths obsession, which I will remind you has absolutely nothing to do with this story.
I will, Andrew, because I'm going to bring up dinosaurs.
Oh, for God's sake.
What these guys are doing is
You found the loophole.
I did, absolutely did. What these guys are doing are a little bit like what Jack Horner, who was the model for the paleontologist in Jurassic Park, don't you know, Sam Neill's character. He's doing this exact same thing in Montana, but instead of getting bugs in molasses or what have you and getting the DNA out of him, what he is doing is what these guys did, and he is starting the ant from the beginning, taking out the genes that they didn't have when they were a different version of themselves, and he's doing that with chickens. And you know why he's doing it with chickens? Because when they're in embryos and their direct descendant is the T-Rex, they are that former self. So he's getting very close to taking out those genes, and what comes out of that egg, when the chicken has that egg, it's not chicken, it's a T-damn-Rex. And we are near, and I will be there.
If I remember the movie, it didn't.
Yeah,
turn
that's
out
what
that
I'm.
well.
Exactly. Thank you. Have you seen The Fly?
Exactly.
This is not good.
This whole thing is a throwback to a time when movies of the week were.
I want a pet T-Rex. I didn't hear anything you guys just said.
God.
Well, these soldier ants are going to have a tough time later when they come home and their pensions aren't paid and they can't find work.
Oh, now you made it political.
You see what I
You
did
see what
there?
you did there? You made it political.
You
Do you want me to
You're
autograph?
Fido.
Do you want me to autograph this for
Come on,
you?
Fido. Oh, you're not a dog. You're a giant thunder lizard. Now fetch.
You know how you kill a giant ant? A small magnifying glass.
I don't care how giant that ant is. Fido will smash.
Yeah.
I think we just screwed up the homeowner association rules.
I think we screwed up a lot of things tonight. Seriously?
Great.
Wow.
It's a bold new world.
All right.
There's no room for humans.
We will close things out, thank God, with the post-game wrap-up from Mike Baker. And to see clips of recent shows, go to foxnews.com/redeye.